Making the headlines tonight. 2 Japanese maritime self-defense force ships dock at the Sihanoukville Autonomous Port to commemorate the 30th anniversary of Japan's peacekeeping operations in Cambodia. 8 arrested union leaders representing the demonstrations by former Naga World employees are released by the Phnom Penh Municipal Court on bail. China's foreign ministry says the assertions from U.S. officials that Russia asked Beijing for military equipment for its campaign in Ukraine was disinformation. Daniil Medvedev loses world #1 ranking after defeated against Gael Monfils. And Adelaide Zoo announces the debut appearance of a new baby quokka. This is the Daily Roundup on EAC News Channel. A very good evening to you. I'm Darshana Gochan. 2 Japanese maritime self-defense force ships carrying nearly 200 crew members docked in Cambodian waters on the morning of Tuesday, 15 March, to commemorate the 30th anniversary of Japan's peacekeeping operations in Cambodia. EAC News reporter Deka Nin has the details.
The docking of the ships was welcomed by the Minister of National Defense, Deputy Prime Minister Thiet Banh. During the welcoming meeting and talk with the arrived delegation of the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Forces at the Sihanoukville Autonomous Port, the Deputy Prime Minister remarked that the visit of the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force is of great value to Cambodia and promotes cooperation in all fields between Cambodia and Japan. He said that he would like to commend and express appreciation to the Cambodian Navy, which has cooperated with the ministry, local administrative institutions, and relevant authorities to coordinate the arrival of the 2 Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force ships, which safely docked at the Sihanoukville Autonomous Port. He added that the Cambodian people will always remember and appreciate the participation of the Japanese Self-Defense Force peacekeepers who came to Cambodia for the first time 30 years ago, especially the sacrifice of the 2 officials during the UNTAC mission. Atsuhi Nakata, the district election officer who sacrificed his life on the 8th of April 1993 in Kampong Thom province, and Haruyuki Takata, a police officer who sacrificed his life on the 4th of May 1993 in Banteay Meanchey province. The visit of the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Forces at Sihanoukville Autonomous Port brings expectations that the Japanese side will push for a more active Cambodia-Japan bilateral cooperation plan. This includes the exchange of visits by young officers and the senior officers, training for capacity building for the Cambodian Army on humanitarian and disaster relief, which offers active officers training in engineering and health. Since 2008, the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Forces have docked at the Sihanoukville Autonomous Port 9 times, with a total of 24 ships arriving in Cambodia. The visits have included joint training to strengthen cooperation and enhance the capacity of both Cambodian and Japanese navies in the sectors of health, humanitarian relief, disaster response, and counter-terrorism. A delegation of the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Forces arrived in Cambodia on Tuesday morning, with 2 ships docking at the Sihanoukville Autonomous Port to commemorate the 30th anniversary of Japan's peacekeeping operations in Cambodia. The 2 ships that arrived are the Uraga 463 and the Hirado 305, bringing a crew of nearly 200 members, and will be docked in Sihanoukville from the 15th to the 17th of March. Deka Nin, EAC News.
On Monday evening, the Phnom Penh Municipal Court released the 8 union leaders representing the demonstrations by former Naga World employees on bail. The 8 individuals had applied for temporary bail to the Ministry of Labor and pledged to end the protests and also return to negotiations to resolve the ongoing labor dispute. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more.
The Minister of Labour and Vocational Training, It Samhang, sent a delegation to visit the temporary release from former Naga World employees to discuss a time for negotiations to take place in order to end the ongoing labour dispute. The 8 individuals released on bail includes Chim Sithor, who is the former union leader of Naga World casino workers. All 8 of them had written separate letters addressed to the Minister of Labour requesting to be temporarily released from jail in order to negotiate a solution while promising not to hold any more protests or strikes. In a letter signed on the 12th of March 2022, all 8 of the individuals called on striking workers to return to work and those who have been laid off to stay at home and keep quiet so they can engage in a further negotiations with the company Naga World Limited and the Ministry of Labour. The letter states requests that the competent ministries, especially the Ministry of Labour, to intervene legally so we can be temporarily released from jail as Naga World workers' representatives in order to resolve the ongoing dispute. We promise not to rally or lead any protests and affect the public order and national security. In early January 2022, the Phnom Penh Municipal Court investigated and detained 8 protesting former Naga World workers for inciting serious social unrest under the Articles 494 and 495 of the Penal Code. The Naga World protesters began 18th of December 2021, stemming from Naga World's decision to lay off 1,329 employees in April of 2021. From that number, 373 employees refused to accept the compensation offered by the company and went on strike, despite such demonstrations being deemed illegal by Cambodian courts. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
A workshop on the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership was held on Monday, where Cambodian officials and experts gathered to discuss its benefits and achievements so far. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has more.
The Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, Consequences, Challenges and Future Economic Growth for East Asia and ASEAN workshop was held online on Monday with the participation of officials from relevant ministries, national and international institutions, embassies, and the private sector. The workshop was organized to hold discussions among national experts and international researchers on how this agreement fits into the regional global trade model, and with the aim to solve any identified challenges and promote particular mechanism, commitments, and technical aspects which appear to be working well. The RCEP is a wide-scale trade agreement between the 10 ASEAN member states and the 5 major trade partners to ASEAN, namely China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand. The agreement was first signed on the 15th November 2020 and finally came into force on January 1st, 2022. The Minister of Commerce Pan Sosa stated during the workshop that the RCEP agreement will provide Cambodia a yearly growth of export from 9.4% to 18%, which will contribute to 2% to 3.8% of national economic growth. Around 30% of the world's population is covered by the RCEP, accounting for about 30% of the global GDP and also representing around 28% of global trade. More than 90% of merchandise trade among signed members of the RCEP will eventually be subject to zero tariffs. Dekanin, EAC News.
The Minister of Tourism, Thong Kon, stated on Monday that Cambodia will begin using a state-of-the-art garbage collection boat equipped with new German technology to clean up the Mekong, Tonle Sap, and Tonle Basak. This boat has the capacity to collect 20 tons of garbage per day. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more details.
Minister Thong Kong held a meeting with the chairman and co-founder of Everwave GmbH, Clemens Namakfagal, and executive director of River Ocean Cleanup, Noor Savan, to discuss work regarding the cleanup campaigns on the Mekong, Tonle Sap and Tonle Basak. The Mekong cleanup campaign will utilise new Germany technology, the garbage collection, both named Mogina by Lackerman, which has the ability to quickly collect location data in landfills via drones and capacity of collect up to 20 tonnes of garbage in the water per day. The co-founder of Everwave started the campaign. We will use CollectX boats to pick up the trash from the water and riverbank from March to June 2022. The collected waste will then be distributed into landfill in Phnom Penh, jointly organised with Everwave and River Ocean Cleanup, and the non-recyclable waste will be sent to Chipmunk EcoCycle to be converted to energy in the cement factory. He added that the campaign main activities, including cleaning the river, using the CollectX garbage boat to collect plastic and overflowing debris from the river, and cleaning up to 200 metres of the riverbank to prevent garbage from falling into the river. The campaign also includes recycling collective garbage by Chipmunk EcoCycle and educating students and people living along the river about infrastructure development and the enforcement of waste laws in Cambodia. Minister Thong Kong extended a warm welcome to Everywhere and the River Ocean Cleanup and expressed his appreciation to them for organising for this river cleanup campaign, one of the first river cleaning missions in its kind in Cambodia, contributing greatly to the protection of Cambodian waters as well as the recent launched nationwide Clean City campaign. The minister also called on the working group to continue its long-term mission of cleaning up the rivers in Cambodia, not only in Phnom Penh area, but to continue this work also in provinces, especially where tourism is concentrated like Chong Khanes, Siem Reap and other riverside provinces. He said that promoting clean and green practices along the rivers and the seas will help attract even more national and international tourists to take a boat or travel activities on the rivers of the seas. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
The Minister of Health, Mom Bun Heng, has requested all capital provincial governors to organize a campaign to raise awareness on COVID-19, to act as a regular reminder to join the continued fight against the spread of the coronavirus. EAC News reported that Ganin has further details.
In a letter dated Monday, 14th March 2022, the Minister of Health, Mom Bun Heng, stated his observation that after Cambodia reopened the country, some have begun to neglect implementing proper and thorough health measures, which is a good opportunity for COVID-19 to actively circulate in the community and cause another surge. He added that to date, the new COVID-19 variant has continued to spread in the community, with some cases of serious illness, hospitalization, and death reported among the most vulnerable and unvaccinated. He said the presence of the new COVID-19 variant in the world indicates that the pandemic is still unfinished and remains a public health risk for all countries, although some countries have relaxed their health measures. The minister added that in such a situation, it is necessary to increase public awareness of the need to protect oneself from the disease. He urged officials at the capital province level to organize regular educational activities and prepare educational materials such as banners and posters to be disseminated in key locations across the country. He also encouraged the dissemination of campaign messages on social media and provincial media, as well as projected over loudspeakers in key locations. The main goal, he stressed, is to educate and disseminate crucial information on COVID-19 using the messaging created by the APEC working group, encouraging people to continue implementing the 3 do's and 3 don'ts health measures, especially in high-risk places such as markets, restaurants, factories, schools, and other crowded areas, and further encouraging everyone to get vaccinated against COVID-19 as soon as possible. Nekanin, EAC News.
Cambodia has reported 139 new COVID-19 cases, including 24 which are imported. There have been 425 patient recoveries and 1 new death. Today marks the 3rd day of lower Omicron figures in Cambodia, but worries still persist over late release of PCR tests. The kingdom recorded 115 new community and 24 new imported cases of the new variant, meaning that Cambodia has now recorded 13,911 cases of Omicron, 1,249 imported, and 12,662 community cases. Fears are growing that the expected influx of migrant workers returning from Thailand for the Khmer New Year could bring an increase in COVID-19 cases, which, if not handled and managed properly, could lead to another community outbreak. Cambodia's COVID-19 case tally has now climbed to 134,352. The death toll stands at 3,048. The number of patients treated successfully since the pandemic reached Cambodia is 129,717. And the tally for imported cases has climbed to 21,106. Healthcare workers are currently treating a total of 1,511 patients. And now for a look at news making international headlines this Tuesday, 15th March.
A small private plane crashes and catches fire on Okinawa's Rijima Island on Saturday, March 12, leaving 2 persons dead. A non-profit organization that owns the air rescue plane have said the 2 victims are pilots aged 74 and 61. There were no patients on the aircraft at the time of the incident. Transport Ministry officials have said the men were undergoing training for takeoff and landing. The plane collided into a fence when landing on a runway.
Thai police were about to serve an arrest warrant to Jamrat Ratchachan, 45, when the gunfight has ensued as Ratchachan was resisted authorities in Panthalang province, South Thailand on Friday. Police Major Asan Mesang has died at the scene after being shot with an unknown type of firearm in the head. One of the Sultans, Wachana Ratchaswan, 38, was also killed. 2 other officers were injured. Lieutenant Colonel Chachai Sano, who had severe gunshot wounds in the right forearm, while Lieutenant Colonel Napada Napatapong had suffered a minor injury in the right elbow area as well as wound of broken glass. Officers have tracked down the gang and found their car have parked on the foothill of Khao Bahata Wildlife Sanctuary. Cotton wool soaked with blood was found burnt outside the car, while blood traces were also found in the vehicle. Police have also been sent to hospitals and paramedics in the area to watch out for the assailants. Locals have also been offered rewards if they come across the gangsters and contact the police. One of the escapees, a hired gunman, Jamrat Ratchachan, had been accused in murder cases and attempted murder cases in both Patanalang and Songlakawa province, wanted by the police with a bounty of 100,000 baht, around $3,000. Police Lieutenant General Nachajay had added to police had gotten in touch with other 2 escapees, Jay Swanamarano, 22, and Atapo Masan, 21, parents to collect DNA. He has said, "We have collected DNA samples from the gangsters' parents so we can compare them with the traces we found in the car." Atapo's mother, One Pen Mason, said, "My son has left the house since March 7th, saying he wanted to work lumbering with a friend in another village. Last night I heard from relatives that my son had gone with a group of friends and was chased by police. There was a shooting fight and he was injured."
8 people were killed while 30 others were injured in a bus crash after the driver allegedly fell asleep while doped up on methamphetamine. The tour bus operated by Thailand's state-run transport company smashed into a concrete barrier before hitting a bridge pillar in Saraburi province on Saturday afternoon, March 12. Driver Narin Sat Hongsa, 30, was taking passengers to Bangkok from Royat province when he is believed to have fallen asleep on the wheel, according to the police report. Narin Sat has initially denied falling asleep and said that one of the tires might have bursted, but test results allegedly showed that he was high on methamphetamine during the crash. Police Colonel Chetchai Chetsiri has said the driver later confessed to us that he was high on methamphetamine while driving. We have filed 2 charges against Narin Sat for being intoxicated while driving and for causing property damage and death to others. At the scene, the cement block barrier was completely smashed while the vehicle's interior, the front right wheel, and the bar area on the side of the bus was also damaged. Officers took Narin Sat into custody for a thorough investigation while the injured passengers were taken to Saraburi Hospital, Sao Hype Hospital, and Kang Khoi Hospital for treatment. The injured passengers and the relatives of those killed in the crash will now be compensated by the Transport Department's insurance company while investigations are ongoing, officials have said.
China's foreign ministry has said on Monday, March 14th, assertions from U.S. officials that Russia has asked Beijing for military equipment for its campaign in Ukraine was disinformation from the United States.
China slams U.S. claims that Russia asked it for military aid as disinformation. The comments came during a regular Chinese Foreign Ministry briefing in Beijing. Russia has asked China for military equipment since its February 24 invasion of Ukraine. The Financial Times and Washington Post has reported on Sunday, March 13, citing U.S. officials. The Washington Post has said the unidentified U.S. officials did not state the kind of weaponry that had been requested or how China had responded. Russia, which calls its action in Ukraine a special operation, and China have tightened cooperation as they have come under strong Western pressure over human rights and a raft of other issues. Beijing has not condemned Russia's attack and does not call it an invasion. It has also urged a negotiated solution to the conflict.
Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov has said that Moscow has noticed the recent statements by the senior officials from the US and EU, Jake Sullivan and Joseph Borrell, that Putin was apparently unhappy that his troops had not advanced the way he expected in major cities, including Kyiv. And because of that, Putin allegedly expanded his offensive targets and attempted to cause damage to every part of the country. The Kremlin said on Monday, March 14th, that Russian forces could take full control of major Ukrainian cities, and it had sufficient military clout to fulfill all of its aims in Ukraine without any help from China.
The United States and its European allies have cast the Russian offensive in Ukraine as an imperial-style land grab that they say has so far been poorly executed because Moscow underestimated Ukrainian resistance and Western resolve to punish Russia. The Defense Ministry of the Russian Federation, while ensuring the maximum safety of the civilian population, does not exclude the possibility of taking major population centers under full control. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has made clear. Peskov has also said claims by the United States and European Union that Putin was somehow disappointed with the progress of what the Kremlin cast as a special military operation amounted to a provocation aimed at prompting Russia to storm cities. Peskov has added they had received a very tragic news from Donetsk, where more than 20 civilians died for a missile launched by the Ukrainian armed forces, who, it seems, are acting on advice and follow the methods of their overseas masters. Russian armed forces use modern high-precision weaponry targeting exclusively military and information infrastructure. All plans of the Russian leadership will be achieved at planned time and in their entirety. Peskov has mentioned Putin had at the start of the operation explicitly asked the defense ministry to avoid storming major cities such as Kyiv because he thought Ukrainian units would use civilians as shield. He has also said some Ukrainian cities were already surrounded by Russian forces. When asked about the remarks by U.S. officials who has said that Russia had asked China for military equipment, Peskov said no. Peskov has said that the information on Russia requesting China's military assistance comes from Washington. Different newspapers wrote about it. The newspaper write a lot of different things nowadays, and there's no need to treat what they say as the original. Peskov has mentioned that Russia possesses its own independent potential to continue the operation. It is going according to plan and will be completed on time and in full.
Ukraine is ready to negotiate to end the war started by Russia more than 2 weeks ago, but would not surrender or accept an ultimatum the country's foreign affairs minister Dmytro Kuleba has announced on Saturday, March 12th.
To fight Putin's
Speaking at a virtual event organized by the non-partisan non-profit organization Renew Democracy Initiative, Ukraine Foreign Minister Kuleba has said civilian lives would be saved if Ukraine had fighter jets and more attack planes to destroy large military columns. He has added that he believed that war would likely end if Russian President Vladimir Putin were removed from power.
Of course, this doesn't exclude the track of diplomacy and the need to talk and to find solutions. But as President Zelensky said on a number of occasions, we are ready to negotiate, but we are not going to accept any ultimatums and surrender. If we had more planes, we would have been able to save many more human lives, mainly civilian lives, because the main striking force of Russia is in the air, and they indiscriminately choose to attack civilian infrastructure and kill our civilians. I believe that the removal of President Putin will be enough to stop the war, but the restoration of peace and security in the Euro-Atlantic space will also require not only the removal of Putin, but the deputinization of Russia. Putin is not just a person, it's a system. And Russia must be deputinized.
Kuleba's comments came as fighting raged near Kiev and heavy shelling in other areas threatened new attempts to evacuate trapped civilians. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz spoke with Putin by phone, urging an immediate ceasefire. However, a French presidency official has said, "We did not detect a willingness on Putin's part to end the war."
After the break, a look at all the latest sports news.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
Daniil Medvedev lost his #1 world ranking after being beaten by Gael Monfils 4-6, 6-3, 6-1 in the third round of Indian Wells on Monday, while Rafa Nadal beat Britain's Daniel Evans 7-5, 6-3 to stay unbeaten in 2022.
Monfils let out a roar as he secured an upset in the sixth match point in front of an adoring California crowd with a backhand winner to set up a meeting with Spanish teenager Carlos Alcaraz in the fourth round. "I'm quite happy right now. I'm in my zone," Monfils said. "I moved quite good and then I changed the speed quite a lot." The Frenchman handed Medvedev the break in the ninth game of the first set, and with the pair double faults and the two forehand errors, as the reigning US Open champion dropped just 4 points on his serve in the opener. But Medvedev lost the momentum in the second set, unable to convert on the 5 or 6 break point opportunities. Monfils broke him in the fourth game with a backhand winner and again in the eighth with a fiery forehand. Overcoming obvious exhaustion, Monfils won the first 4 games of the final sets as Medvedev was unable to set up a single breakpoint opportunity. It was the first time in 13 years that the 35-year-old Monfils beat the #1 ranked player in the world. 20 times Grand Slam winner Novak Djokovic is expected to return to the top of the world rankings when they are updated. Nadal sent Evans packing with a routine with the win extended and the unbreak streak with his 17-0 after winning the men's record-breaking 21st Grand Slam title in Australian Open. Down in the early break, the Spaniard levelled it with the 8th game and again broke Evans to close out in the first set and seized the momentum. He dropped just 2 first set points in the second set, breaking his opponent early and wrapping up his 400th Masters match win with a forehand winner before thrusting his hands in the air to cheer from the crowd. He reached the fourth round after staging a breathtaking 3-set comeback on Saturday against the American Sebastian Korda and said after the match he was pleased to wrap up Monday's affair in a tighter fashion. "Happy to be able to keep going in the tournament," Nadal said. "I think after a few games I've been playing better and better."
After a 2-year break due to the coronavirus pandemic, over 11,000 competitors from 40 nations lined up to take part in the 52nd Engadin Ski Marathon in Switzerland on Sunday, 13th March.
Known as the second largest cross-country skiing event in the world, thousands were attracted to Brisbane's High Valley to conquer the 42 kilometers long marathon route from Maloha to Eschanth. In the men's elite race, Romain Forger, fresh off an 11th place finish in the 50-kilometer race of the Beijing Olympics, sealed the 4th win in the competition, with the Swiss crossing the line ahead of veteran countryman Dario Colonia in France Tom Mancini 3rd. On the women's side, local Nadia Kellin from St. Moritz was a surprise winner as a 20-year-old clinched victory ahead of French pair Céline Choupard and Linor Leterrier.
World champion Max Verstappen saved his best for last, vaulting to the top of the timesheets in his Red Bull on the final day of pre-season testing in Bahrain, as teams pulled out all the stops ahead of next weekend's season opener in the island kingdom.
The 24-year-old lapped the floodlit Shakir track in 1 minute, 31.72 seconds, going 0.521 seconds quicker than Mick Schumacher, who put Haas second during the extra running granted to the team to make up for time lost to freight delays. Ferrari's Charles Leclerc was third. Regaining constructors champions, Mercedes ended up pre-season a second after pace, with a new recruit George Russell fifth, with Lewis Hamilton was down into 17th. The team which showed up in Bahrain with radical shrunken side pods have struggled to dial their car in, but have also been suspended for running their engines in a lower power mode, costing them speed on the straights. Early on Saturday, the 12th of March, Hamilton warned fans not to expect him to be in the fight to win at the start of the season, marking Ferrari and Red Bull out of the favourites. Saturday's running concluded 6 days of pre-season testing split across Barcelona and Bahrain ahead of the first race of the season on March 20. The pre-season action was even more important than the usual this year, with teams and drivers getting to grips with the cars designed to the most radical rules on overhaul in decades. While lap times are notoriously difficult to read, with teams running difficult fuels and engaging in a great deal of gamemanship and sandbagging in which they hide their true speed by deliberately running slower, rivals have hyped Ferrari up as their early favourites. The Italian team has been consistently fast and reliable, chalking up the highest lap count of pre-season ahead of Mercedes. On Saturday, Red Bull, who unrevealed and revised side pod design and also led the timesheets as launched with Sergio Perez, confirmed that their presence is in the flight of the front. The lap times tumbled as Saturday's teams have feeded their cars over the first 2 days of running began pushing their limits. The action was halted by 2 red flag stoppages, but there was no major incidents.
And now for a look at how the weather will be playing out tomorrow. And finally, Adelaide Zoo in South Australia announced the debut appearance of a new baby quokka on March 10th.
Although they were once abundant in Australia, today quokkas are vulnerable animals threatened by extinction, according to the ICUN Red List of Threatened Species. The new baby quokka at Adelaide Zoo makes its debut appearance out of the mother's pouch on the 10th of March. Adelaide Zoo has said that quokka joeys live in their mother's pouch for around 5 months before exploring the world out on their own. 5-year-old quokka Yire had previously given birth to a joey who did not survive. However, now she is mother to a new adorable and curious joey that has brought much joy to the zookeepers in Adelaide.
Thank you for watching the Daily Roundup on EAC News Channel. For more breaking news and updates, you can check out our website, eacnews.asia, or search EAC News on Telegram or at your favorite app store. More from the EAC News team tomorrow night at 8 p.m. We will see you then.